part 4. I made this part only for you, like to watch this video together, and like maybe I'm putting my own notes on it. So this part is only to revise the subordinating and the correlative conjunctions in order for you like to sharpen your understanding for subordinating and correlative conjunctions. Enjoy.
Hey, grammarians. Today, let's start talking about subordinating conjunctions. Words like although and after and because. Because this is a pretty complicated topic. Because in order to understand subordinating conjunctions, you have to understand the difference between an independent and a dependent clause. Because that's what's
Guys, I hope you still remember what are the dependent and independent clauses. Like just a quick revision that the dependent clause is the clause that relies on the independent one in order to complete its meaning. Like its meaning is incomplete without the main part, without the main clause. But the main clause, which is the main sentence in that the whole structure, it's okay. Like it can stand alone without the dependent clause, but it's unlike for the dependent clause that can't stand alone without the main clause. So subordinating conjunction comes with that dependent clause, like although, because comes with the subordinating clause, not the main clause.
subordinating conjunctions do is they unite independent and dependent clauses. That's what subordinating conjunctions do. But what are these? You know, what is an independent and a dependent clause? Well, okay, so first of all, let's back up again. What is a clause? A clause is just a language chunk that has a subject and a verb. That's what a clause does. All sentences.
Guys, clause means a sentence. Yeah, like there's no difference between the clause and a sentence. But sometimes a sentence, like it has a complete meaning, but the clause, it's not. Sometimes has an incomplete meaning, like the subordinate clause, the independent one.
Are clauses, but not all clauses are sentences. I'll write that down. So all sentences are clauses, but not all clauses are sentences. It's possible to have something that has both a subject and a verb that doesn't stand on its own, and that's a dependent clause. We'd call that a sentence fragment. What a dependent clause does is provide extra information that isn't necessary to the understanding of the sentence, right? But an independent clause has to be able to stand on its own. So let's take a look at this sentence here. Herbert performed his irresponsible experiments because he was curious. And this sentence is composed of two clauses. In red, we've got this independent clause. Herbert performed his irresponsible experiments. And in green, we have this dependent clause, because he was curious. Now, we know that because he was curious is the dependent clause because it explains more of why Herbert did what he did, right? It is explaining the reason for his performing irresponsible experiments. But because he was curious on its own doesn't work as a sentence. He was curious does. That's a sentence. But because he was curious asks more questions than it answers.
Exactly. So as I told you, subordinating conjunctions comes with the dependent clause. Actually, the subordinating conjunctions, they are what makes the subordinate clause or the dependent clause dependent or subordinate. Without it, like without the because, he was curious. It's like a normal sentence, a normal clause. It's a main clause, okay? But with the subordinated conjunction, this one makes it dependent, makes it needs like more information, makes it need more explanation.
Because he was curious what? You know, if a clause causes you to ask, yeah, so what? Then it's probably a dependent clause. Write that down. Put that in a doctrine. So, a dependent clause should cause you to ask, yeah, so what? Because a dependent clause leans against an independent clause. It's like a ladder laid up against the tree. The tree is still going to be standing there whether or not the ladder is there or not, but the ladder is useful because it allows you to get up further into the tree and explore its leaves, if that makes sense. It allows you to get further context and further understanding. But the tree could just as easily, it's still a tree without the ladder, right? You don't have to have a ladder in order to be a tree. All right, so another thing about the difference between a coordinating and a subordinating conjunction is that coordinating conjunctions only unite independent clauses with each other. Which means any sentence that has a coordinating conjunction like but or anything else in fanboys, which is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, right, can be separated into two sentences, two separate sentences. Look at this. So, Jimothy liked to wash the dishes, but Beckany preferred to sweep the floor. Now, these can each be their own sentences. Jimothy liked to wash the dishes, Beckany preferred to sweep the floor. We can combine these if we want to, and we have. Whereas this subordinating conjunction sentence that begins with although cannot be separated into two sentences. Although she loved Sir Reginald, Lady Penelope hated his pranks. So Lady Penelope hated his pranks, that's a sentence. Although she loved Sir Reginald, that's not a sentence. This is a dependent clause. So this can be split. This cannot be split. Because although she loved Sir Reginald doesn't stand on its own, it just grants additional context and detail to the fact that Lady Penelope hated Sir Reginald's pranks. So with that in mind, here are some of the most common subordinating conjunctions in English. And some of these you might recognize as being adverbs or prepositions in other contexts, but you can also use them to unite dependent and independent clauses. So here we go. After, although, as if, because, before, even if, even though, if only, like, rather than, since, that, though, unless, until, when, where, whereas, wherever, whether, which, and while. All of these words have the power to unite independent and dependent clauses. You may notice some of them, like after and before, are prepositions. They can be used in many ways. English is complicated, but
as he said, guys, English is complicated, and after and because can be used as a preposition sometimes, but it depends on the context. As I always tell you guys, it depends on the context. Even what happened with us in the types of prepositions. The word at came in many types of prepositions, like preposition of time, preposition of place, preposition of movement. At were there, but it depends on the context. Like at school, it's preposition of place. At 5 o'clock, it's preposition of time. This is the difference. It depends on the context.
I'm confident that you can figure this out because you can learn anything. These are some of the subordinating conjunctions of English. David out.
Okay.
Hey, grammarian.
That was a subordinate conjunction. I hope you now understand it. No, master it. Okay, I need you to master it, guys. I have another video I need to share with you, which is correlative conjunctions.
Hey, grammarians. Today we're going to be talking about correlative conjunctions. And I know this looks like a pretty ugly word, correlative, like it's kind of complicated looking, but let's break it down. This co part comes from the Latin com, meaning with or together. Relative is like it means relative or related. Are related together in some way. They're matched pairs. They're a matching set. And this just means that when you see one, it's probably time to use the other. In this video, we'll go through 5 of my favorites.
As we said, guys, they come in pairs, like both, no, whether or, either or, neither nor, but also.
It's
Yeah, and both and.
So either or is a good pair to start off with. And when you start a sentence with either or either, I don't know how you say it, it sets up the expectation that you're going to have to be choosing between two things. So we're going to say or later in the sentence. As in what is reputed to be Oscar Wilde's last words, either the wallpaper goes or I do. The opposite of either or is neither nor. So either or sets up this choice between two options, and neither nor rejects both options. So neither Gia nor Becca liked Howard. And I recognize that I say neither and some of you say neither, and there's a whole George Gershwin song about that, but let's just chalk it up to my Midwestern American accent. How about? Either, either, neither, neither. Let's learn about some conjunctions. But oh, if we talk about the both, then you use and. And oh, if you learn to use conjunctions, that is grand, oh yes. Both Bigby and Ledoux were career criminals. Where we're using both to indicate a connection between two things, and then we use and later in the sentence to really firm that up. As so is kind of an interesting one. It's a little formal, and it kind of allows you to set up this relationship of consequence, right? To say if one thing is happening, then another thing happens as a consequence. So, as goes Kansas, so goes the nation. So, you know, as one thing happens, so must another thing happen, is what this is trying to set up. Whether and or is similar to either and or, except it has a kind of whiff of possibility about it. Whether you like shrimp or chocolate, there's certain to be something for you at the Veracruz Food Fair. Right, because whether is kind of setting up this possibility between these two options, and it doesn't really matter which one you choose. It's just offering up possibilities. And I would like to offer you the possibility of checking out more of these correlative conjunctions in our exercises. So stick around. You can learn anything. David out.
That was a part 4. No, it's a part 4, but it's a part of the part 3. So see you next time, inshallah, in the new grammar. Hope you really understand now what's the difference between 3 types of conjunctions and the interjections. See you.